that Trump has secured the White House, one of the big questions is what will happen with those multiple criminal cases pending against him. U.S. prosecutors in talks to wind down 2 federal cases against Trump before he takes office in January. Reports say the cases would not be finished before the inauguration in January, after which point Trump could prohibit prosecutors from pursuing them. During the campaign, Trump vowed to fire special counsel Jack Smith, who's been spearheading the probe into Trump's retention of classified documents and his efforts to overturn the 2020 election. With me now to discuss is Jeff Jacobvitz, trial attorney with Arnell Golden Gregory. Good morning, and thanks so much for being with us.
Good morning, Marcia.
So what do you make, first of all, of these reports that Jack Smith is in conversation with the DOJ, Trump's possible team, about winding down these criminal cases? What does this mean?
So what it really means is if he waits for Donald Trump to fire him or through his new attorney general, he would not be able to write a final report that would be released to the public. If he is fired now or resigns now, it gives him enough time to write a final report, and then that goes up to Merrick Garland, and Merrick Garland can release it to the public. So it can be a detailed report about what he found. But obviously, those cases are not going to go to trial now and will never go to trial. So, for example, the case in Georgia is the RICO case. The case in Florida, which is the
Mar-a-Lago
document case, we will never know what documents were there, what classified information was there, and whether it was released to anybody.
So from Trump's perspective, the strategy of delaying, putting things off, pushing things out as much as possible, seems to have paid off.
Absolutely. And, you know, there is some question about why it took 2 years or so to appoint Jack Smith for the investigation. The investigation was very thorough. Trump was very successful in filing these dilatory motions that delayed the case. He took it up to the Supreme Court. He ended up with an absolute immunity decision by the Supreme Court, which delayed the case even further. And so his strategy of delay was successful.
And Jeff, what about the sentencing that is meant to be at the end of November for the New York hush money trial? That sentencing was put off. Will this now still happen?
Well, yes, there are 2 state cases pending, and those are cases that Donald Trump cannot dismiss, and a new attorney general cannot dismiss. He has set a sentencing scheduled for 3 weeks from now. If the judge, in fact, does give him jail time, during the 4 years of his presidency, he would not have to serve it, and it would be hanging over his head until after the presidency. If the judge gives him probation, which in these kinds of cases happens often, but not always, then this case would be over as well, depending on what the requirements are for the probation.
And then, Jeff, while Trump is in office, does it mean that he is immune from any further criminal prosecution against him?
Well, he's basically absolutely immune because of the Supreme Court decision. There are exceptions to it. If he's acting outside the scope of his authority or really of his presidency, he could be subject to prosecution. But who will bring it? It would have to be a state, because the federal government is not going to sue Donald Trump.
I have to ask you lastly, Jeff, for all of our viewers who are watching this thinking, this guy is the very definition of durable. Nothing seems to stick to Donald Trump. How is that? What is your legal or perhaps not so legal explanation for that?
Well, you know, he's had a lifetime of avoiding these cases or having these cases, filing bankruptcies, being sued civilly. By the way, the civil judgments are still in effect, and he still would owe those people money. For example, Stormy Daniels or anybody who's accused him of sexual assault.
Eugene Carroll, yep.
Eugene Carroll, he owes that money, and he can't get around that. He will try to appeal it in some fashion and delay it, but that is something that's a serious fine. But in the presidency, it could be that he's going to make more money, and so it would not matter to him. He has been successful his entire life. There's no doubt about it, and he's been threatened with litigation. He's been sued criminally now 4 times, and he's managed to avoid it. Although in New York, he did not avoid it. In New York, he went to trial. 12 jurors, independent jurors in New York State, found him guilty.
Yeah, he is a convicted felon. Jeff, thanks so much. Glad you could be with us today. Appreciate our conversation.
Thank you, Marcia.
Jacobvitz is a trial attorney.